Hello, friends. Welcome to the Confidence Zone. I am the host here, Susan Axelrod, the Confidence Coach. Today, I am going to be speaking with one of the contributing writers to an anthology of which I also am a part, called The Wisdom Collection. This amazing book is published by Summit Press, publisher Ann Sheybani. Each chapter in this book is filled with one piece of wisdom that transformed the writer's life. When I learned about the opportunity for this, I knew without a doubt in my mind that the one piece of wisdom I would share in my chapter was thoughts are things, and you can control things. Therefore, you can control thoughts. This was a game changer for me, and that is what I chose to write about. Today, we will meet Dr. Haley Arias, who is one of the writers in this chapter, and she's going to share her wisdom of transformation. Hello, Haley. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me. Great to see you.
It's honestly a pleasure. This book is extreme, without a doubt. The way that we were told to be pointed, brief, with impact. It was exactly my language. So why don't you share with us today this one piece of wisdom that you learned that was transformative for you?
Yeah. For me, my chapter really centers on the idea that life is full of forks in the road, full of opportunities to choose. And there's always a choice. My work really deals with people that have gone through loss and are experiencing grief. And so my chapter is really about how there's a choice even in your grief. And that for me was huge. Personally, having gone through and experienced lots of loss in my life, but it's really about reclaiming your agency, your own agency in the moments in life that you feel really powerless. And life throws that at us, right? There's a lot of powerless moments.
I mean, honestly, for full disclosure, Haley and I are not old friends. We're not longtime colleagues. You really don't know me. But I speak about personal agency in all of my work, Haley. Again, synergies is one of the reasons I'm doing these interviews, because the synergies are just perfect. So when you say reclaiming your own agency, through this loss and through grief, and you said, my gosh, that even in grief, even at a fork in a road, you are offered opportunities to choose. This is so beautiful and so powerful. How do you describe, how you get through, you face it, and you're at that fork in the road, and then you go one way or another?
Well, I think I chose this topic because I can really see how transformative it is in my own life as well as in people that I work with. When you choose how you want to show up and how you want to heal and how do I want to move forward. Like, so for example, there was a lot of years that after I lost my dad to suicide, I didn't realize maybe at the time, but I was making a choice that I was going to be angry and I was going to be bitter and I was going to see the negative in a lot of things. And I was going to take things really personally until someone told me, like, you get to choose. That even though this is really crappy circumstances, you still get to choose. And
who was that? Was that like a therapist or a friend?
Yeah, that was a therapist, but I think she was probably getting pretty sick of me.
No. I mean, no, I'm asking because you were lucky
Yeah.
lucky to be in therapy. You were lucky to have a therapist to say, she didn't use the word honey, but like
Right.
euphemistically in parentheses, like, honey,
Mhm.
I don't know if you realize this, but you do get to make choices.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's
Mhm.
powerful. That is completely transformative, because when you're in that stuckness, in that stuck place where you're paralyzed by the anger and the trauma of, in this case, a suicide loss of your dad. You're a child,
Mhm.
of some age,
Mhm.
whatever, and you have no idea that you have choices.
Sure.
I mean, this is like chilling. It's
Mhm.
so powerful. What did you do with this knowledge?
Well, first, I feel like you start recognizing how you're choosing currently, right? That awareness of, oh, right, I didn't respond very kindly to that. Oh, right, I took that very personally and took that as a slight to me. Just starting to have that awareness and recognizing that in itself can shift things instead of just running, um, you know, just running on autopilot,
Right,
right?
being co-opted and triggered by the feelings.
Totally.
Right. You took charge of your spiritual, personal energy.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to start practicing a little bit of introspection here and look at how I'm showing up in the world. And that in itself makes a huge difference. And oh, right, that's not who I want to be. That's not who I want to put out. That's not the energy, and that's not who I want to be in the world.
Wow.
And then that can really shift. Okay, if that's not who I want to be, then who do I want to be, and how do I get there, and who do I need to call to help, and all of those things. You can take different actions then once you have that awareness.
Do you mind sharing with us, how old were you when your dad died by suicide?
I was 20 when I lost my dad.
Yeah, you were 20. So 20 is on the cusp of adulthood, not really quite. You think it might be, but it's not really quite. So you were
Right.
still, on the cusp of leaving your childhood and so on. And then this happened, and then you were in therapy, already a choice, right?
Right.
Already a choice that you made. And then somehow you got there, and you heard, like, you were open enough. Somehow it's like, the way I feel it, like your soul rose to meet the therapist who said, when you said, I learned that I was making a choice.
Right.
That's wisdom.
Mhm.
That's elder wisdom. And so, and then recognizing how you were responding, if you felt anger or defensiveness or whatever. I mean, this was way ahead of your years at that time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think when you experience trauma, that's what it does to you, right? You kind of get forced into growing up a little bit, maybe sooner than your peers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this a good time to ask you to share about your book that apparently now I realize was an outgrowth or an outcome of this experience?
Yeah, my children's book.
Yeah.
Yeah, my children's book that's really for adults.
Right.
It's really for everyone. Yeah, I have this. I wrote this book when I can't see you. Um, it it was really it was born out of actually when I lost my brother when I was 11 years old.
Oh,
So my older brother, and so I kind of come from that strong Southern family that doesn't talk about feelings a whole lot, and not knocking my family at all. That's just kind of how things were done, um, and I just remember kind of creating some of my own coping mechanisms at 11 years old, and that was another situation that kind of makes you grow up faster than your peers. Um, and then I lose my dad, about 10 years later. And then as I become an adult, I started undergoing fertility treatments, and we had quite a few losses there.
Losses.
And so it felt like loss was a common theme in my life. And I found myself resorting back to some coping mechanisms that I had created as an 11-year-old when my first experience with loss. And one of the things that I did was I kind of wrote this children's book. I didn't know at the time it was going to be a children's book. I was just journaling and writing, and so my husband said, well, you got to do something with that. And I was like, no, this was just for me. This was just in my downloading of everything. And he said, no, you got to get an illustrator. And I know the illustrator. And I think there was some fear on his part because I was in such a low place that he said, nope, you got to do this. And it gave me a project.
Yeah, project and a purpose. Yeah.
Totally. And I didn't realize how much I needed it and how much putting it on paper. And the illustrator is an amazing woman in my town. And we went back and forth and she said, this is you. I need a picture of you as a little girl. And so the little girl in the picture or in the book is from my little girl pictures, and seeing that for me, even if it never did anything in terms of sales, was like, no, this was the healing I really needed, was to put this all together.
Yeah.
And so that's been really, really special. And then just realizing it's made its way into so many homes, and it's done more than I could have ever imagined. And getting that feedback from families and parents that this book is sparking conversations. This is not just it's not a cutesy bedtime story. It's real life stuff that oftentimes we avoid because we don't know how to talk about it and we're scared of getting it wrong.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And we're particularly scared of getting it wrong when it comes to our kids.
Yeah.
Right. And when, looking back as an 11-year-old, I just wanted to have those conversations with the adults in my life.
Right.
Because that felt safe. Right. And that wasn't really happening.
But you just said in part it wasn't happening because the adults were scared of getting it wrong.
Sure.
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Totally. And as a parent now, I completely understand that. And so just hearing, yeah, we are talking about this. We're talking about this at bedtime. We're reading this at bedtime. We're talking about it at the dinner table. We are, buying telescopes and we're picking out the star that is grandpa or is grandma or the dog that we lost, and we're finding ways to talk about it and use our imaginations and know that there's no getting it wrong.
This is so incredible. We started by talking about the wisdom collection and this idea that you share in your chapter in this amazing book, which is filled with chapters by different authors like you, different writers, people doing powerful things, that life is full of forks in the road and that you have choices that you can make. Yeah. And that brings us all the way forward to this amazing book. Let me ask you, we just have another minute or so. Where can people buy this book?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. You can also find it on my website, drhaleyarias.com. So just drhaleyarias.com. You can order the book there. You can also find out more about me, programs I offer, have a call with me, talk a little bit more. But that's where you can find this little gem.
Great. I love this. I want to thank you for coming here, for speaking about this and speaking directly to your soul. She's strong and she's rising, and the result is this powerful book about which, before we came on air, you said is one of the things of which you are most proud, because it's shifting dynamics in households. And that basically is predicated on this wisdom of our opportunity to choose even in difficult times. So Haley, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the energy that you're bringing to our world through this important work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, wishing you the best, and I'll see you again soon.
You too.